Hi everyone, welcome to my new YouTube video. My name is Dom and we are going to build this PokeDex with Next.js and Tailwind CSS. So make sure to hit the subscribe button and like this video, and I hope to see you at the end of the video. Okay friends, so to create our Next.js and Tailwind project, we can follow the Tailwind CSS documentations. There is a step-by-step guide to create a Next.js application with Tailwind. But as I'm a lazy developer, I created a simple boilerplate on my GitHub, which I'm going to use for this video. So let me copy that clone link here. I will post the link into the description so you can use it as well. So here we can simply git clone this project and let's give it a custom name. Let's name it PokeDex. Okay, hit enter, so this will clone this project to our file system. And now we are ready to open up that project in our text editor. Okay, so this is how this boilerplate looks like. So what we have here is a basic Next.js application. What I added is the Tailwind config file, which we need in order to make Tailwind running, as well as I added the Tailwind components here to the global CSS file. But yeah, in order to make this run, we have to install the dependencies. So for that you can use npm install, or as I will use yarn. Okay, this will take some seconds, and once this is done, we are already ready to start our development server with yarn dev. So on localhost 3000, now our application will be running, and inside of your browser you will be seeing this simple template. And one more thing I added, as we can see here when we open up index.js, which is the home page of our application. So I added a layout component, which, when we check it out, contains a head tag section, and wraps the content of each page inside of this main class. Okay, so now we can start building our application. So for that, we're going to fetch like the first 20 Pokemons. So for that, we're going to use the get static props function, which is served by Next.js. So this function basically is run at build time of our application. So it is called only once you build the application. And as we assume that the Pokemon data which we fetch at the beginning won't change, we can be safe to use this function. So we will be saving requests as we perform only one request and not each time when we reload the page. So export async function get static props is what it's called, and a context object is passed, and here what is going to be returned is a object which contains the props. Alright, so this props will be passed here to our component, and what we want to pass is the Pokemon data, and for that we are going to fetch from the PokeApi API. So here in the browser on PokeApi.co, we can copy this endpoint and let's create a new const called response, which will await, since we are running async, this fetch method. And here we pass the API endpoint and we add Pokemon, since we want to fetch the Pokemon. And that's almost it. What we got to do now is to make it a JSON object. So for that, let's create a new const. I will name it initial Pokemon. And let's say await response.json. And yeah, now we need to pass it to our component like this. And here we destructure this object from the props. And yeah, let's simply log it and check if it is working. Save it, and back in our browser, we can open up the DevTools and reload the page. And now we have our Pokemon data object here, the response, which we get from the API. And as you see, we get here some, as you see, what we get here is a count. I guess it's the Pokemon total count. I'm not sure about that. We get a next attribute, which is the endpoint for the next 20 Pokemon. We don't get a previous link since we already fetched the first 20 Pokemon. And of course, we get a results object or array with the first 20 Pokemon. And that's good for now. We can work with that. So what I'm gonna do now is to remove that stuff inside or between this layout component, which we won't be needing. Okay, so now before we start displaying the data, I would say let's add some basic styling. So with Tailwind CSS, we can add not only CSS classes, but we can also add what's called a layer base, where we can go and use normal CSS selectors like the body, and then we can apply the Tailwind CSS classes. So here I'm going to use the background slate 700 for the body, as well as white text. All right, so this will make a dark background and white text for our whole application. And yeah, that's it for now here in the CSS file. And what else? So we can check that now. So we now have a dark background. Okay. So what I else want to add is a header inside of the layout component. All right. So here, let's create a header tag where we're gonna say we're gonna use an H1. Say PokeDex, and yeah, let's give this some styling classes. So let's say text will be maybe 9. That's a bit too much. Okay. Let's center that. Let's give the color. Let's give the text a color of amber 400, and maybe here let's add another background. Let's say slate 900. Okay, and maybe some padding, some vertical padding. All right. So now we have this header here, which says PokeDex, which is good for now. So we also want to change the title here. Here we can also say PokeDex. Okay, this will change the title here in the tab. And yeah, I think that's good for now. So now we can start displaying the data. So so before we start, let's create a new state variable. For that, we need to import useState from React. And then we can say const Pokemon and set Pokemon, and give them the initial state of initial Pokemon. Okay, so the object which we are fetching here, we are going to save in a state now. And then we are ready to display the data. So here inside of a new div, I'm going to go ahead and use the results array from Pokemon. And I'm going to map over it. And here we're going to use both params. So the first, let's call it monster, and the second will be the index. And use round brackets since we want to directly return whatever we pass here. So let's use a div for now and say monster.name. And since we map here, we always have to pass a key, which for our purpose will be the index. Okay. And now let's check our application. And now we get 20 different Pokemon names here displayed. And that's what we wanted to achieve. So before I continue with styling and adding more informations, I want to outsource this here to a component which I'm going to create now. I'm going to name this Pokemon since that's what it's going to display. Okay, create a new component called Pokemon, and then we can pass this here inside. So actually, yeah, we don't need that since we don't need that. So this component is going to receive the Pokemon object as well as the index. And then we can go ahead here and say Pokemon.name is what we want to return. And now we need to change that in our index.js. So we need to import the Pokemon component from components/Pokemon. And then down here we're going to use it, say Pokemon, like that. Again, give it a key, which will be index. The Pokemon which we are passing is called monster here. And we're also going to pass the index. So now when we reload the page, nothing should have changed. So yeah, that's what we want to achieve. So basically, yeah. So now we have that. So back in the Pokemon component, I want to also, besides of the name, we want to display the index number of the Pokemon in the PokeDex, as well as an image. So first thing is, from the API, we now don't get any image. So for that case, I'm going to use the PokeDex from Pokemon.com. And here, as you see, we have also a PokeDex, and we're going to use these images. And fortunately, when we copy this address, we see that the names of the images are the same as the index is. So to use this image path here, we safely can use the Pokemon index. All right. So let's copy the whole path here. And for the image, we are going to use the image component from Next.js. So import image from next image. And down here we then can use it like that. In the source, so one prop will be the source, where we're going to use backticks. So we can use variables. So, and basically what we're going to change is this number here. And to do that, we need to add one more thing. So the index which we get here is 0 based. So the first thing we need to add, so let's create a new const called PokeIndex. So we have to add 1, so we get the correct index. And what we else need are the leading zeros here. in front. So for that, we're gonna use a little hack. So let's say we add the string with the 3 zeros here, and then we can use the slice with an adjective number. So let's say slice -3, which then will give us the correct number. So let's copy this const here. Let's remove this number from here, and with a $sign and a curly brace, we can pass the variable. All right, just like that. And this then, will be our image name. So what we else need to add is a width and a height. Let's set this to 150. And also we need to set a alt attribute, which we simply set to the Pokemon's name. Okay, let's save this and let's reload the page and see if this is working. No, it's not. So we get this error here, which says invalid source prop on next image hostname assets.pokemon.com is not configured. And that's right. So we need to copy this here. We need to add the host to our Next.js config. So inside of our file directory, we have a next config.js, and here we need to say image domains, all right, which accepts an array, and here we need to pass the assets.pokemon.com host. And once we have done some changes to the next config file, we need to restart our dev server. So let's go ahead and cancel that and start again with yarn dev. Okay, and hopefully now when we reload the page, we can see the image. So I guess it's images. So let's give it another shot. All right, so restart and reload, and now we get the images. So but as I see here, we still have an error. So this is the first one. This is okay, Bulbasaur, but that's not correct. So let me console log my index. I guess I made a mistake here. Yeah, okay, so the mistake I made here is we need to put this into route brackets as well. So we first get the correct index number. All right, so when I save this and reload, we hopefully get the right images. All right, this looks better already. Great. So now we have the Pokemon, the name. Let's display this PokeDex index as well. I'm gonna create a new span for that. Let's say hashtag, and here we pass the Poke index, and that's what we want to see. So number 1, number 2, number 3, blah, 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 up to number 20. Okay, so now we can add some styling to that. So let's do that. So to the div, let's add a background of Slate 900. We're gonna add some border radius and as well as some padding. Wow, okay. Yeah, of course. So let's make a grid out of this. So index.js, here we have this div which is wrapping our map function. We can add a class which is grid, and then we say, okay, for the mobile view we want to have one column. For the medium breakpoint we want to have 3 columns, and for the large breakpoint let's say 5. And let's also, so this already works perfect, but yeah, all of the divs are next to each other, so let's add some space between, and we can do so by adding a gap. And this already looks beautiful. Now, what I don't like is that we don't have any space in here, so maybe we can, in our layout.js, let's add some margin bottom to the header to give this more space, yeah, so we can breathe. Alright, I already love it. So what we can do next is, yeah, so we can center the images and the text, and maybe we can do a cool effect with the index number here. So back in our project, let's go back to the Pokemon component. Here we can say, okay, let's display this flex and flex column, and then we want to center all the items inside of it. Okay, so let's say item center as well, and this PokeIndex, let's add here some classes as well. So let's say let's position this absolute. For that we need to add a relative clause to the wrapper. Okay, and yeah, let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's say text 5XL, and text slate, I don't know, maybe 500 places at the top. And write 3 maybe. Let's check that. This looks good. Maybe we can make the font a bit bolder. Yeah, I like that. What I see now is that it's over the image, so let's add a minus z index of we need to, yeah, that's better. So we have to place it above, so we don't need that index. All right, a little mistake. That looks already good. So let's, yeah, add some styling to the name. So here we can create a new span tag, and we will say uppercase to uppercase font. Let's make it semi-bold, tracking wider, and let's make text yellow. All right. Okay, perfect. Let me add some margin to the footer as well. All right. Let me close that here now. Okay. So we have the first 20 Pokemons set up, so we can check if the grid is also working. This is maybe not perfect, but yeah. Good. I would say we are ready to go to the next step, which is the pagination. So we want to add a next and the pref button, so we can fetch the next or the previous 20 Pokemon. All right. So let's go back to our index.js. Okay, so let's start by creating our buttons, which will be two pieces, one which is saying pref and the other will say next. So once we click on the button, we will call a function which is called fetch Pokemon, which needs to be async. Okay, and to this function we are going to passing the URL which needs to be where we're going to fetch the next Pokemon from. All right, and this is basically what we're going to do. So let's copy that and pass this here inside. But instead of this string, we're going to pass the URL. All right, and it's not initial Pokemon, but next Pokemon. And once we get the next or the previous Pokemon, we're going to set them to our Pokemon state. So down here, let's add an on-click event to the buttons. Okay, here we're going to say, what we're going to say is fetch Pokemon. And now for the previous button, we're going to say Pokemon.previous. And for the next, we're going to say Pokemon.next. So these are the two URLs we get from this fetch, and which is stored in this initial object. Okay, so now we can pass that. So back in our application, yeah, let's maybe add a bit styling so we can see the buttons a bit better. Let's say, yeah, padding px 3py1 bg slate 900. Okay, this looks okay. It's not perfect, but for the test now, okay. And as you see, the names are changing when we click on next, as well as we click on the previous. So this is already working, but we need to adjust one more thing. So the index keeps being the same. So for that, we need a state variable, which I'm gonna call offset. Okay, so let's add this here. Let's say offset. And the initial state will be 0. Okay, so yeah, we don't have an offset at the beginning, and now we need to add each time when we fetch new Pokemon, we have to set a new offset. Either we have to add 20 or subtract 20. So this depends on which button we're gonna click. So for that, I'm gonna add a boolean here on fetch Pokemon, which is, yeah, let's name it next. And here we're gonna pass, for the previous button we say false, since we are not fetching the next but the previous. And for the next button we're gonna pass true. All right, let's correct that. All right. And so here we can say, when we fetch Pokemon, we have to determine. When we fetch Pokemon, we have to set a new offset, and then we say, okay, are we gonna fetch the next Pokemon? So we have to set offset plus 20. Otherwise, we have to set offset minus 20. And Now we need to update the index of Pokemon here as well. So we're gonna add offset here. So back to our application, let's check if this is working. So click on the next button and you see the index is updating. We add 20 to our index and subtract when we click on the previous button. Let me adjust that styling here quickly. Let's add a margin to the top and let's center that whole thing here. And one more thing, let's add a gap of 5. Great. So what we else can add is, when we are at the beginning, the previous button should be disabled. So here we can add a disabled attribute which says for the previous button, if not Pokemon previous, and here we say next. And yeah, then we also need to add a disabled styling, which gets background gray 500 if we are disabled. Great. Okay, so now we can implement the next step, which will be to create the detail page of a Pokemon. So when we click on one of these Pokemons, we will be redirected to a new page where we see the Pokemon details. And to do so, here in the pages directory, let's create a new directory called Pokemon. And inside of it, we're going to create a new file, and the file name will be in these square brackets. So it's going to look like this, name.js. And the reason is that the param we are passing to the URL will be the name of the Pokemon. So let me show you what I mean. So this will be our Pokemon page, and here we're gonna add also the layout component. So we have our page wrapped between the header and the footer. All right, and yeah, so in order to get to this page, we need to adjust our Pokemon component. So this thing now needs to be a link. So for that, let's import the link component from Next.js. And then we're going to need to wrap it just like that. All right. So, and the link here will be, maybe we can use backticks. It's better. All right. So let's start with /Pokemon. So this Pokemon here stands for the directory, which we created here, and then followed by the name of the Pokemon, which here clearly is Pokemon.name. All right. So let's test this in our application. So at the bottom left corner, we already see the link which we created. So this will be Pokemon/Bulbasaur, right? And when we click on it, we already get to the page. So maybe we can, we could here render something like test this. Okay, so you see this is the page we actually want to see. So now when we get on this page, we want to start fetching the Pokemon's data. All right, so, and in contrast to this get static props function, which we used in the index.js, which is called on the build time, we are gonna use here the get server-side props, okay? Which is let's create it first. So export async get server-side props with the context object function, right? And yeah, pretty much the same. It's gonna return props object. So I guess the main difference between get static props and get server-side props is that the get static props function is only called once the application is built, and the get server-side props is called on each request. So this is important since we want to fetch always a different Pokemon, and we don't want to save all the Pokemons in on our server. All right. So yeah, and now we can simply copy that fetch request here and place it here, and then we just need to adjust a few simple steps. So let's use the backticks here as well. So this is the endpoint. What we need to add is the Pokemon's name, right? And the Pokemon's name is what we pass here to our link at the end of the URL, all right? And we can get to that with this context object when we say context.query.name. So this name is what we pass here to this file as a name. So, and now we don't need to call it initial Pokemon, we can simply say Pokemon. Let's pass it to our component, and we can destructure that from here. And we should be able to now display the name of the Pokemon. So when we reload the page, we see Bulbasaur displayed here. So this fetch also works. We can test now if we go back to our home screen and choose a different Pokemon, the other Pokemon's name is displayed here. All right. What I want to change here now is one thing. I want to add a link here to the home page, as well as I want to display the name of the Pokemon here. All right. So we can simply do this by adding a new prop called title here in the layout component, which we then going to display instead of the PokeDex string. Then we just need to add it here on index.js, where we pass PokeDex, as well as here in the layout where we pass the Pokemon.name. We can remove it from here. And now we get the name of the Pokemon displayed here. And let's add the link as well. So and this link redirects us to the homepage. Now we need to import it as well from Next link. So the navigation will be a little bit easier for us. And as we see, still everything is working. So now let's add some details here to display. So the first thing is, let's copy the image component from the Pokemon component and place it right here. And let's adjust the height and the width. And yeah, we have to adjust also the Poke index, which we have here in the Pokemon's component. So since we don't get an index passed, we need to use another variable, but that's no problem because here we have the Pokemon.id, and this should work already. And we also can display the Poke index. Let's choose Blastoise. And we're gonna display the Pokemon's name. But as you see, everything is written in lowercase. So let's add another hack for that. So let's say Poke name is Pokemon.name first index to uppercase, yeah, to capitalize the first letter, plus Pokemon.name slice 1. When we change this, we now have a capitalized name. So we can change this here as well. Yeah, perfect. What's next? So let's wrap this inside of a div and give this some Tailwind classes. Let's say flex and flex call, and center these objects. And here we can say absolute text. So we can, instead of using text XL, so I guess what's the biggest font we have here? I guess it's 9XL. So we can, instead of that, we can use the square brackets and paste pixels. All right, and if we say 400 pixels, this font will be 400 pixels of font size. Let's make it bold and then change the text color. Just like that. Okay, this looks pretty cool. Yeah, we actually don't need this name down here anymore. And yeah, let's add, I don't know, let's see what we have here. So some cool informations which we have are the types. So we have here grass and poison. So let's go ahead and create a new div. Give it a class name with different background. Make it a bit darker. Give it a border radius and some padding. And here inside we're gonna create a unordered list where we then gonna render the types. This function needs to be created. Let's do it. Const render types is we can use here the round brackets. So we return what we have here, and here we're gonna use the Pokemon types, and we're gonna map over it and say each type, again the round brackets to return directly. For each type we're gonna render a list item where we need to pass a key, and here we can use type dot slot, I guess. Yeah, so type slot is a kind of index, and right between here we can say type.type.name, which will render the name of the type. And let's add some basic styling. So px2 py1 and background like this, and as well we're gonna display this as flex and add some space. And also here we want to add some border radius. Yeah, looks good. So what we else have are the stats. Here we can maybe create something. So let's go to Pokemon's detail page and add something here. So let's create a new div where we're going to render stats. Yeah, sure. So let's create the render stats function. Also, we're gonna use the round brackets. Here we're gonna map over the stats. And for each stat, we're gonna return a div. Yeah, so we need a key, and if we check this here, we don't have anything we can use for the unique key. So let's add the index here, where we can say key will be index. So base stat 45. I guess this is a percentage of 100. I'm not sure about that. But here we can create something like that. So let's give this a background color of background slate 700. Here we're gonna return, of course, stat base stat base stat. Okay, yeah, this is working somehow. Yeah, let's add some margin and the border radius. So this has full width, and now we can add something like a progress bar, or not progress bar, but a percentage bar, where we're gonna say so here we're gonna use again the dark background, right? The dark background, and for the width we're gonna create a style attribute where we pass a object with the width, and here we're gonna create a string where we pass the stats, and we add a percentage. All right, and so when we save this, we get this progress bars here. It's not progress bars, but I don't know how to call it. Okay, this looks already good. I think we can leave it like that. You can remove right, yeah, okay, you get a point. So here we have our PokeDex where we can fetch Pokemon and display the Pokemon's data. So that's it. Alright friends, that's it. We built a PokeDex with Next.js and Tailwind CSS. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and to like a video. Also, you can leave a comment and tell me your feedback. Thanks and bye bye. See you in the next video.